information that I can give you. Quick review. Last time when we talked about Biblical History Part 1, we reviewed mostly the parts that were given to us in BC. For example, we started out with the Jewish Tanakh. Then we went to the Greek translation of the Tanakh called the Septuagint. And we finished off with the Apocrypha, which are quite a group of books that were written during the intertestamental period. So today, we're going to start with the New Testament, 27 books, roughly 9 authors. All scholars do not agree. And we're going to talk about the time post-Christ. For the sake of this video, we'll just say roughly 33 AD onward. And the real reason that we're going to look at these is because we want to know, the question is, how did we get the Bible that we currently call our modern Bible that we hold in our hands? So today we're going to talk about the books of the New Testament and the contribution and how they came about over time. So for the dating of some of these things, we're going to talk about the question I have, which was, what was the very first book written of the New Testament? And it sounds like a simple question, but the truth is, no scholars agree. 4 scholars will give you 10 opinions. So I'm going to take a step back and present the information and let you do some research on your own, which you will quickly discover. Again, all the scholars do not agree. But there are 3 books really in the running for the first book written of the New Testament. And the reason is because we actually have a window that we know they were written between. And those books are James, 1 Thessalonians, and Galatians. And those 3 books were all written in the window sometime between 45 and 55 AD. Now, the scholars that I have read pretty much agree that James was probably really written about 45 AD. And of all the books that we have that are the New Testament, that theologically or scholastically is considered the most Jewish, meaning it probably was written to the Jews. It has not as much citing of Christianity, and it seems to be most Jewish book thought to be written by James, the brother of Jesus, who was not saved until after the resurrection, but became the first leader of the Jewish church in Jerusalem. And we know that he was killed in 62 AD. So his book had to be completed at some time before then. At the same time, we have Paul beginning to write his letters to the churches of Thessalonica and Galatia. And so that's why somewhere in those windows, those 3 sort of came all into being about the same time. Does it really matter? No, not so much. But what it does let you know is within about 10 to 12 years of Christ dying, we already have the New Testament starting to be assembled. Now, on the surface, by the time we get to 95 AD, what we have is a man named Polycarp. Polycarp was actually a disciple of John, disciple of Jesus, who began to write. And as he was writing to churches, somewhat like Paul, one of the things that he did is he quoted scripture. And Polycarp actually ends up quoting in his letters to the churches 18 of our 27 books. And I'm going to read my list. He quoted from Matthew, Mark, Luke, Acts, Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians. He quoted from 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Hebrew, 1st Peter, and 1st and 3rd John. So we know, since Polycarp was quoting them, that those manuscripts were already in existence by 95 AD. And that is roughly what? 60 years after Christ had died. So these things were coming together very quickly. And why were these things being written down? Well, especially when you consider the Gospels, they were being written down because the first person witnesses of the life of Christ were actually beginning to die out, the last being John. So the first thing that we have in history is the Muratorian Canon. And what that actually is it's a Latin document from 700 AD, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it itself says it is quoting a Greek list from what they think is 170 AD, which lists all the books of the New Testament except for Hebrews, James, and 3rd John. Those books had already been quoted in some respect from Polycarp, minus, I think 2nd John was the one that he did not. So the Muratorian canon, though a 700 AD writing, was quoting a list from 170 AD that was in Greek, listing already almost the complete New Testament, which brings us to about 325 AD, which is a significant year. The Council of Nicaea is thought to have been pretty fairly agreed upon that it happened that year. But in addition, we have the next codex, and that is the Codex Sinaiticus. And what's interesting about that is that was written between 325 and 350. And what is it? It is a complete Greek Bible. Old Testament, New Testament, plus Apocrypha, completed between 325 and 350 AD. Everything is there. What's interesting about that book is, if you would like to go visit it today, even though it is a completed Greek Bible, it is now in 4 parts, and it has been distributed across the globe. So it is currently residing in the Leipzig University Library in Germany, in the National Library of Russia in St. Petersburg, at St. Catherine's Monastery in Sinai, and the largest component of that book is at the British Museum in London. So if you want to visit this completed book, you actually have to go to one of 4 places, which I think is kind of sad, but that is what it is. After that, we have fairly quickly in about 382 AD, just maybe about 32 years after the completion of the Codex Sinaiticus, we actually have the Vulgate. And that vocabulary word will come up a lot as you do any sort of biblical study, because the Vulgate is the first completed translation of the Bible from Greek into Latin. And this is where we're going to end today, because after the Vulgate was paid for by what essentially was the Catholic Church to translate that, it sat, and that was where our Bible sat for a very long time. In fact, it sat there in just Latin all the way through the Dark Ages. So the next time we pick up, we're going to talk about the Bible as it picks up at the end of the Dark Ages through the Bible Wars to what we have today. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.